please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Manu Jain, absolute pleasure to have you join us here on CNBC TV18. And it's an incredible journey that Xiaomi has had. Less than 4 years. You're today probably the largest smartphone maker in India. And today you've come and you've made this really big announcement. You brought in 50 suppliers, unprecedented move as far as electronics manufacturing in India is concerned. You've announced commissioning of 3 additional smartphone manufacturing plants along with Foxconn. Now you're saying we are also going to make PCBs out of India. Take me through, unpack some of these big announcements you've made short while ago.
Thank you so much for hosting me. Xiaomi has had a great success in India. We just started about 3.5 years ago. And in a short period of 3 years, we became the #1 smartphone brand. I think one of the key things that really helped us was our whole approach towards making in India. We said 3 years ago when we started off, we said we want to make phones locally here. We want to design phones for India and make them locally here in the country. So we had 2 big manufacturing plants, both of them in AP, Andhra Pradesh. And we are taking the next big leap today. The first thing that we are announcing is we're setting up 3 more plants across
3 more additional smartphone manufacturing plants?
Yes, across 2 campuses. The one big campus is in Andhra Pradesh, Sri City, and there's a new campus which is being built in Tamil Nadu, in Sri Perumbudur near Chennai. Right. So across both these plants, we'll have across both these campuses, we'll have 5 manufacturing plants, all of them owned and operated by our partner Foxconn. And in addition to this, we also have a manufacturing unit in Noida in partnership with Hypad, where we used to make power banks. And even in this particular unit, we will start making phones. So we'll now manufacture phones across 6 different plants, 5 with Foxconn and 1 with Hypad.
So what is the demand projection that you're internally expecting? I mean, this is, you're increasing your manufacturing footprint 3-fold through this. So what is it that you're expecting? Maybe give me a number 5 years down the line, which is sort of, pushed you into making this sort of a bold announcement.
If you would have asked me 3 years ago whether we would be the #1 brand, and if you look at the IDC numbers for last few quarters, we're doing more than 9 million phones a quarter. We would have never expected that. So it is very difficult for a company which has been here for 3 years to give you a 5-year long
You're doing
prediction.
36 million handsets you're producing currently.
What we're doing is
now you're saying you're going to increase it 3-fold. Hence, I'm asking. I mean, that's a phenomenal jump from where you are currently.
Just to be clear, a lot of this has already been done. And the number that the IDC is basically suggesting, which is 9 million a quarter, is after a lot of this addition has already happened.
Okay.
And we were going to do this even further. We are open to further expanding this. So we are pretty bullish on Indian market. Like we really believe our journey has just started. What we can achieve is a lot more. Because even if you look at this, even after this 9 million a quarter number that IDC claims, a lot of people are still not able to buy our products. Because the demand is significantly higher. Even after becoming the #1 brand in India, a lot of people complain that they're unable to buy products. And we want to solve that problem once and for all by just increasing our supply. And that's why we're taking such a big step.
Because everybody would say, that what you're telling me is that the volumes you had anticipated earlier, it's, eventually it's surpassed and it's gone much beyond what you were expecting, but that was on a lower base. But now your base is expanding, and therefore I'm still trying to understand. So what is the number that you would have given your team, to sort of, or perhaps convince, the Xiaomi board to make this kind of investment in India?
I really cannot talk about a number. It's very difficult for me to say. The way that we work is we work on a very real-time basis. We will continue to monitor how our demand is, how much we can supply in the local market. And then we are open to expanding, even setting up more plants, either within the same campuses, or even opening up new campuses in coming few years. And this is just a starting point for us, because on one hand, we would want to set up more manufacturing units for our existing products, which is smartphones. But second, we would also want to set up or get more and more component suppliers to ensure that the entire supply chain is here locally in the country.
Yeah, we'll come to the component supply in just a bit, but I would just want to wrap up this point about your manufacturing, because already you were earlier manufacturing 1 smartphone a second. Now that has gone up to what, 2 smartphones
2
a second?
phones a second.
When the plants are of course operational. After this, what does it mean now?
So today, just to share some numbers, we have more than 10,000 people working across these 2 campuses. And what gives me the most amount of pride is that more than 95% of these people are women. In fact, all the assembly work for smartphones is done only by women. And men are mainly used for managing warehouses and transportation. And this is really incredible because these close to 10,000 women come from hundreds of villages from nearby area. And the socioeconomic standards have completely changed. Their confidence has completely changed after they started working in our manufacturing plants. So we're pretty excited about this. From a manufacturing capacity perspective, of course, now it used to be one phone a second till about last year. Over last 1 year, because we have set up so many new manufacturing plants, it has gone to 2 phones a second during operational hours. We're pretty excited about this 2 phones a second number. I wouldn't want to comment on where would it be in future, but pretty excited about this number.
Okay, so tell me now, the point you were making, it's not happened before. 50 suppliers you brought under the same roof to try, and many of them would be looking at investing in India. Roughly, if everything goes well, what is the kind of investment that we could be expecting?
So these are the 50 biggest global suppliers that Xiaomi has. And we're trying to convince all of them to come to India and set up a local manufacturing unit. They're here for 3 days. They're meeting central government, they're meeting different state governments, they're meeting different industry bodies and trying to understand how does it look like to set up a local manufacturing unit here in the country. And our aim is to educate them because many of them have never been to India, so they might have some concerns, some apprehensions, to mainly educate them and get them excited to set up a local plant here. We believe if all 50 of them decide to invest, the rough maths is approximately 15,000 crores worth of investment might happen over the next few years and can generate as high as probably 50,000 jobs in the country.
And this could well be the highest FDI inflow in the electronic manufacturing space that we've seen in the recent past.
Yes, the single biggest investment in the electronics manufacturing. And this will not just benefit Xiaomi, but this will benefit the entire ecosystem. Because a lot of these component manufacturers, even though they will start manufacturing for Xiaomi, but tomorrow they will also supply to many other smartphone makers. And the entire smartphone industry, electronics manufacturing industry will benefit from this. What I really hope is with this particular thing, India can transform into a big global manufacturing hub. I truly believe India has the potential to achieve this, but for whatever reason, we have not been able to do it in the last few decades. But we really hope we can take India to a very different level.
And when you were speaking with some of these suppliers privately, have some of them already evinced interest? The fact that they are here would show that they are certainly interested in that. But what are you sensing when you're speaking with them? Are there certain regulatory concerns also that you fear could perhaps derail these sort of investment plans that you've outlined for me?
No significant regulatory concern. I think most of them still do not understand India. If you look at 3 years ago, when we started manufacturing in India, the biggest debate was that a lot of these component manufacturers didn't want to come to India because there were no phone manufacturers. And a lot of phone manufacturers did not want to come to India because there were no component suppliers. Now, with companies like us setting up local manufacturing units, the deadlock has been broken. So these guys already have well-established customers in India who are making phones in India. So there's an incentive for them to come and set up a local manufacturing unit. I think most of them are excited. They're pretty intrigued by what has happened in India, how the smartphone industry is completely taken off. And they're pretty excited to come here, at least explore. It's just a matter of education on how India is the right place to be in. And if they are educated enough, they would come and set up a local manufacturing unit.
Let's talk about the third big announcement that you made today. That is the possibility of manufacturing the printed circuit board assembly here out of India. Something that I think only one company is currently doing here. What would this mean? Because you were telling me offline, 50% of the current value of a smartphone is still imported. So that would be addressed once you do the PCB assembly out of India.
True. If you look at the phone assembly, this is a pretty complex process. And you need to bring in hundreds or thousands of components for you to make a phone. Now, 3 years ago, when we started making phones here in the country, less than 1/3 of the phones were being produced locally here. I'm talking mainly about smartphones, probably like 20–30% number. If you look at last 3 years, that number has exponentially grown. It has more than doubled or tripled. So I would say, I don't have the exact number, but probably like 70% of the smartphones being sold in India would be made locally here in the country. Now, which is pretty phenomenal, and it's generated a lot of jobs. But what has been missing is the entire ecosystem being here. And the local value addition has still been very limited if you look at the phone manufacturing in India. So we're taking the single biggest step in the local phone manufacturing. We're taking the most valuable part of the phone, which is called as PCBA, which is where the CPU, GPU, all the key components, the chipsets are mounted on this particular board. And we are starting to manufacture that particular product here in the country. That approximately attributes about 50% of the value of the phone. And that we're assembling or manufacturing locally here in the country. This is a fully automated process. There's a new state-of-the-art plant that we have set up along with Foxconn in Chennai, Sriperumbudur, near Chennai in Sriperumbudur. And our hope is that we want to significantly ramp it up over the next few months.
Okay, so currently 95% of the phones that Xiaomi sells in India is locally assembled here.
Yes.
Now with the PCB also being made in India, do we see like practically all your phones then that you're selling in India, where the PCBs would also be made in India?
True, yes, that's what our aim is. So we make the, as you said, rightly said, more than 95% of phones that we sell in India are made locally here. Still 5% are imported. The reason is because whenever we have a big sale event, or there are few phones which are very complicated to manufacture or assemble here in the country, those are the ones that we import from China, but the number is very small. So now, amongst all the phones that we are making locally here, our aim is by the next quarter, which is early Q3, we want to ensure 100% of the PCBs for the locally manufactured phones should be locally assembled or manufactured here. So all our India manufactured phones will have locally manufactured PCBs in next 1 quarter.
So how many PCBs are we talking about then on a manufacturing at a larger level, if you're saying? So
if you look at our phone manufacturing, that's 2 phones a second.
Yes.
So which means PCB will also be two PCBs a second.
Right.
And if you look at from an overall volume perspective, so what you know the volume that we have been doing for last few quarters. So we'll try and hit that number or even higher than that for both phones and PCB.
You know, you've laid out this picture for me in terms of how you're sticking to the, how you're confident about the market growing, and that's what sort of perhaps explains the confidence that you've now invited your suppliers, the top global suppliers, to come and invest in India. But as you sit here, as you make the long-term plans for India, I know it's hard to predict the future, but what are 2 or 3 of the key business risks that, that you foresee and that perhaps you're a bit wary of at this point in time?
Let's take a step back and maybe look at some of the macroeconomic trends. India is the second largest market in the world, or economy, a country in the world with internet population, internet users. China is the largest one. India is the second largest one. And even if you look at it from a smartphone sales perspective, it's the 3rd largest market in the world and soon to become the 2nd largest in the world. I actually believe we as a country have not even, we've just started, because still date, 50% of the phones that Indians buy are smartphones, and remaining 50 are still feature phone. And there's still a few 100 million, probably 400, 500 million people who are still using a feature phone in the country, who have bought it for last many, many years, right? And all of them will upgrade to smartphones over the next few years. And that is why I'm so bullish on the whole success of smartphone in this country. If you were to ask me about the business risk, the only business risk that I see is whether this upgrade will happen or not, or when will this upgrade happen. I truly believe this upgrade will happen. It's only a matter of time. If there are companies like us who can make truly distinctive, good quality products and make them accessible and affordable for these 400, 500 million people, this transformation will happen. These 400, 500 million people will come online using a smartphone. It's only a matter of time.
But don't you feel, perhaps even the geopolitical risk, considering India and China, there is, we have the relationship is often tumultuous. So doesn't that at all, concern you? Because there have been precedents, there have been incidents in the past where, where the government has intervened, especially when it comes to Chinese manufacturers. Huawei was one big example. So doesn't that at all concern you, especially when you're making these long-term business plans for India?
Actually, no. It was very clear from our side when we started 3.5, 4 years ago that we wanted to build a company. When we are in India, we want to build a local Indian company. If you look at our entire management here, they're all Indians. We are setting up a local R&D center. we are thinking about what do Indian consumers want, understanding their needs and converting them into these products here. And we're making these phones here. So we're building a truly local Indianized company here in the country. I don't foresee that as a big risk. I actually think users are intelligent and smart enough. If you find a good quality product with great specs, they would basically buy it, irrespective of where the country of origin of that company is.
Yeah, but consumers will buy it. But what about the government's attitude?
Personally, I have not seen anything significant till now. We've been here for about 3.5, 4 years. I cannot say anything that I've seen or experienced which would concern me till now.
Tell me also, since since you are making investments in India, and it's companies like you which is making the government's ambition of Make in India sort of come alive. The government recently in the budget and thereafter they announced an import duty hike on smartphones from 15% to 20%. And the logic they had given was this is going to spur Make in India. Do you think policies or policy moves like these using taxation can boost Make in India? Do you agree with that principally?
I think it's a great incentive. There are few kind of companies. Companies which will, no matter what, are bullish on India local manufacturing, and they will do it no matter what. Companies like us. Like I said, 3.5 years ago, we announced our Make in India plans when there were no major tax benefits for us locally manufacturing, right? So companies like us which are committed will in any case do it. But this kind of a tax incentive also acts like a sweetener or like a little bit of booster for companies who are maybe not that committed. For them, then the trade-off becomes even more significant. That if I were to import a phone, then I have to pay a lot more tax or duty. So they will think of local Make in India initiatives. I think this is the right thing. If you look at the whole phased manufacturing plan of the government, I think it's a pretty good plan where they're saying over the next few years, they will create incentive for different components to be locally manufactured here. It's a different thing. We as a Xiaomi, we're taking a bigger leap and we're saying we're not waiting for the phased manufacturing plan. We're getting all the component suppliers now, irrespective of whether this tax incentive will come after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. We're getting all of them today itself, right? But over next, because of this tax incentive, most of the companies will think of local manufacturing and local suppliers over next 4 to 5 years.
So you believe that principally the move was the right one then?
Definitely.
Many now say that Xiaomi is the #1 smartphone brand in India. When you look at the numbers, especially in the last quarter, your market share went up to 26.8%. So in 2018, will the debate end then? Do you feel that it will be Xiaomi? Or will, because competition, of course, will not be sitting quietly. So how do you see, and if you can just perhaps give me some flavor, how has 2018 been so far for you?
2018 has been phenomenal. But let me just take a moment and tell you about the company's philosophy.
Tell me.
When we reach any of these big milestones, like within a second year, we crossed $1 billion revenue mark here in India, that too profitable. We became #1 in online within 2.5, 3 years. And then last year, we became #1 overall, online plus offline. We, of course, celebrate all these big milestones. But this is not something that we are chasing. What we are chasing is all these input metrics, saying, can we make a great phone and make it accessible to everybody? How many number of internet users are coming and using our phones? These are kind of numbers that we track and that we are really passionate about. We believe output, which is a market share, revenue, or the market position. All these output parameters are an outcome of input parameters. If input is great, if our service is great, if our products are great.
But you need the output. You need, need the numbers at the end of the day to keep your team inspired.
Output follows on its own. What you should always focus is on input. #1 position is a great milestone for us because if you look at 3 years ago, a lot of people said Xiaomi's philosophy is flawed. Xiaomi is planning to sell online when everybody buys offline. Xiaomi is not planning to do any kind of TV ad, print ads, any major marketing campaigns, while the way to sell smartphones is to spend a lot of marketing dollars. So a lot of people said negative stuff about us and said, this is a brand which can never succeed in a market like India. And there were more than 300 brands 3 years ago. And we were the smallest ever brand. And the fact that we have done things differently from most of the other brands and have been able to succeed just proves that the new age thinking, which is different from what traditionally people have done, can also succeed, right? So I'm pretty excited about this. It also shows that consumers today are much more involved than they used to be earlier. In today's world of information technology, people are much more conscious. They read blogs, read social media, and then they make a very informed choice. So pretty excited about where we are. I really do not lose sleep on #1 position or anything. Tomorrow, even if we are not #1, we'll be as happy. We'll be celebrating as much. It's a great milestone that we have achieved, but this is something that we don't chase.
You said revenues of 1 billion you will achieve within a couple of years.
Within a second year of existence, which is 2016.
And you had said after that $2 billion is not far away. Have you met that target yet?
I wouldn't be comfortable commenting on our financials right now. Maybe at some point of time in future, we would be happy to talk about it.
Okay, you are also focusing a lot on your non-smartphone side of the business. You've launched now your television sets. How is that going?
Phenomenally. If you look at Xiaomi, Xiaomi is much more than a smartphone brand. Even though most of the people think of us as a smartphone company, if you look at our home market, we have 30, 40 different products. But the interesting thing about these 30, 40 different products is they're all smart. They're all connected to internet. They're all connected to smartphone.
You're a product agnostic company then?
The philosophy is the same.
Philosophy is the same, but...
There are two philosophies. One, that we want to make the world smart. And we want to launch a host of products which are all connected to internet and connected to smartphone. And the second philosophy is that we want to introduce in whichever category, really great quality products with very innovative features and at a very, very affordable, accessible price that we call as honest price. So as long as these two criteria are being met, we want to launch a lot of products.
Manu Jain, thank you for the conversation.
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you so much.